in trouble. It turns out what I was saying was true. And he decided to kill himself. And I'm sorry that he killed himself. Not as sorry as I would be if I hadn't have turned him in and he had killed Israeli babies, you know? Like that. Well, so for the next 2 years, I began to get random weird phone calls. Said, Brandon, can you be ready in 20 minutes? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you need to act like you're a British guy, you need to wear this kind of clothes and meet us here. And I'm like, no, man. So next thing you know, I found myself in the informant program of the FBI as an operative. And next thing you know, they seemed really interested in a lot of the experiences I'd had. They put me with the International Terrorism Division. And I don't know, you know, I actually felt like, I know it's a little extreme, I guess some people would say, but I think I owed that, you know? I had spoken a lot of bad about you and about my nation, and I think I owed that, and I think I did the right thing, and I'm proud that I did it. Okay. But here's the thing, so in the 2008 Republican National Convention, how many of you realize there was a bomb plot against the delegates? A few of you do? How many of you realize that left-of-center activists organized with the explicit stated goal of preventing you from exercising your constitutionally guaranteed rights by any means necessary? How many of you realize that? How many of you realize the only reason you were able to meet was because law enforcement agencies and the FBI like busted their butts to make sure people didn't stop you and hurt you? How many of you realize that? Very few of you realize that. Okay, well that's what happened. People set out from across the country, and a group called United for Peace and Justice has a woman named Lisa Fithian on their steering committee, and they organized the overall democratic protest of the RNC in '08. But that woman also helped organize and train, you know, the 500 to 1,000 anarchists who showed up from across the country, called the RNC Welcoming Committee. And they went there with the explicit stated goal of shutting you down. A bunch of them made bombs, and they all got caught, you know? But here's the thing, it sounds great, but whoa, watch this. So after they get caught, my identity comes out, which I was like, okay, you know, I guess it's time to talk about why I feel the way I feel and why I'm doing what I'm doing. My identity came out in a trial. It was willful. I agreed to testify. And man, I got attacked pretty bad. And what was weird is the New York Times led the charge. And you'd think they'd say something like right before the election, they would have said, left peace activists made bombs, almost killed Republicans. The writer, Colin Moynihan, said, I'm sorry, Mr. Darby, that's not where our editors want to go with this. And so the next day a story came out and it said, peace activists feel betrayed by their government. That was the framing of it. And how George Bush's war on terror, you know, was somehow to blame for these activists feeling betrayed. And all of a sudden I was an entrapper, I was evil. And even though after the 23,000 volunteers had come through our organization with me as the leader, not a bad thing had ever been said about me on the internet at all. Not on a blog post, nowhere. But all of a sudden I was a womanizer. I was a violent person who pistol whipped people. I hadn't started shelters. I had done nothing good. You know, everything I'd ever done was somehow bad. And that hundreds and hundreds of news outlets attacked me and attacked the FBI. And then the guy who made the bomb said that he was entrapped by me and the FBI. And it's like, well, it sounded plausible what he was saying. He said we made the bombs and planted them. And then when a little more information came out, he said, well, they didn't make the bombs and plant them. We did it under the FBI's orders. And then I thought, but I was like, oh, thankfully he lied and now I'm vindicated. And then what happened was the next day, the media just acted like they had never had a false narrative in the first place, and they just shifted the narrative. And all of a sudden, I was the guy who helped the FBI, encouraged them to do it. And then when a little more information came out that proved that that wasn't the case, I woke up that morning, I thought, I'm vindicated, you know? And then they just changed the story again, just ever so subtly, you know? And I thought, And then when that was proven false, and we had to go back to another trial, and the guy finally admitted he had done it and that I had nothing to do with it and the FBI had nothing to do with it. Then the media came up with this other narrative, and now somehow my performance of hypermasculinity means I'm macho. Somehow, the FBI choosing to use a macho person made it inevitable that young men would feel the need to make bombs. Oh, it sounds funny, but then George Soros and your tax dollars through PBS funded a documentary utterly lying about me. Thankfully, folks who work with Breitbart are picking through every inch of that and showing it how they absolutely, just selectively edited video. How's that, Sherrod? Yeah. So I'm fighting back. I'm defending law enforcement, and I'm trying to use the experiences that I've gained from the left, and I'm trying to continue to help people. For about a year, I had to sit there and take that, and then I got a phone call from Andrew Breitbart, and that's how we met. And he said, "Thank you." And I said, "Well, you're welcome." And he said, "Why don't you say your side of the story?" And I said, "I do, man. They won't print my side of the story." And he said, "Well, you can print it on my websites if you want." And that's how that started. So here's the thing. I was honored with True the Vote and I was honored with True the Vote, Catherine Engelbrecht, which Jason talked about. We started an organization. She's my board president. Hannah Giles of Acorn fame is on my board as well. And then Andrew Breitbart's on my board. And we're called Citizen Patriot Response. And you can find us at citizenpatriotresponse.org. And what we do is we try to use the experiences I have, and we try to encourage Tea Party groups to help others with low-income communities so that the dehumanization breaks down, because we believe that people help people better than the federal government can. And we believe that the traditional 3 tiers of conservatism need to have 4, and that needs to be private charity and private aid. We need to really focus on that. And we believe that left of center arguments, those who want to turn our nation into a socialist nation, they can't do that without the dehumanization of you. And what we're doing will break down that dehumanization. Thank you for having me speak today.